Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is JC with Team Empire. Today I'm going to be going over my first impressions for the Varga Dragres ride line and his support, one of the new Fated 1 bosses in Divine Set 1. Sorry we're a little late to this. I know his reveals were on Thursday, I think. But regardless of when this is coming out, I think this is important information for y'all because all of the Fated ones and the Divine skills are going to be a very important part of the game come May. I think this comes out in May. But I'm going to jump right into it, starting with the ride line. We have the grade 0. It's Blade of Hot Air Aldit. I think this is the exact same starter as Triumph Dragon. So normal D-Series starter, nothing much to talk about. Then the grade 1 is Blazonbar Dragon. Auto in this unit is rode upon by Boulder Axe Dragon. You call this card to Rearguard Circle and Soul Charge 1. Then continuous during your turn. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Varga in its card name, this unit gets power plus 2k. I think this is the exact same grade 1 as Reziel's ride line. It's okay. I think a lot of people will play Bavsagra's grade 1 over this because that just adds a card to hand rather than committing a card to board and doing a soul charge. This deck doesn't need a lot of soul. Depending on how you build, you might like that skill. It's also not terrible because calling a card from Soul can provide a better rush than just wasting a card out of your hand. So I'll probably try this, and who knows, maybe I'll actually really like it. The grade, plus his art is amazing, so I want to try to play this card. Now the grade 2 is Boulder Axe Dragon. He says, when this unit is rode upon by a grade 3 or greater with Varga in its card name, call this card to Rearguard Circle. Then auto when this unit attacks a Vanguard. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Varga in its card name, this unit gets power plus 5k until end of battle, and at the end of that battle, retire this unit and draw a card. This card is really, really good. I'm a big fan of this grade 2. It's going to be a nice speeder. It's going to be one of your first attacks in this deck because of Varga's first skill, which we'll get to in a second. Then it replaces itself with the draw. This is an auto include as a 3 of in the main deck. A big fan of this card. I really like it. Committing this early, like going first, just 2 of these to the front row is very, very, very fun. Then for the grade 3, Fated 1 of Unparalleled Varga Dragres. It says auto on Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, costs Counterblast 1, retire all of your and your opponent's front row rear guards, and this unit gets power plus 10k until end of turn. Then at the end of that battle, stand this unit, and this unit gets drive minus 2 until end of turn. His Divine skill, which can only be used once per fight, is auto on Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked a grade 3 or greater unit. If your opponent has 4 or more cards in their damage zone, and if this unit attacked 2 or more times this turn, costs Counterblast 1, stand this unit, and it gets drive plus 2 until the end of turn. So the main skill to talk about is obviously the first one, a restand skill that wipes the front rows. I'm a big fan of the retire effect. I think a little bit of control in any deck is a really good thing because it's not fun to just let your opponent commit cards without ever being punished. So they have to think about that, and it's not a targeting retire either. So that's really good. It's kind of like Bavsagra. Now, it clearing your own front row, that is kind of a big deal. Like, you have to think about it, but obviously most of the support that's already made for this deck has counterplay to that. Like you already saw, Boulder Axe Dragon gets rid of himself. Really, really cool effect. And then the restand is essentially free. It's a counterblast, but it's not like Overlord where you have to discard cards and you're not going to get additional drive checks. But in this deck, I think the Vanguard is almost always the Vanguard swing is always going to be either the last attack or like the second to last attack, depending on how well your turn is going. So you're probably going to be stacking triggers on this unit regardless. Then the Divine skill, it's actually pretty hard to use because of its restriction, and I think the restriction is built that way, with your opponent's damage, so that you don't have control over it per se. Meaning, like, if it was a traditional limit break, meaning like you had to be at 4 damage, not your opponent, it would be really easy for you to just take a bunch of early game pressure, and then immediately on your grade 3 turn go into your Divine skill, which would be pretty strong. Three Vanguard swings is it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. So I think the restriction makes sense, but it will make the Divine skill very difficult to use, especially since the Divine skill is also a counterblast. So I don't know. We'll have to see how well the deck does in using its divine skill. And people are already talking about like countercharge, which maybe the deck will get one day, but I think this deck would be really strong right now if it did have a countercharger. So I think pacing this deck out is probably not a bad idea. And that first skill is pretty dang good. Also, keep in mind that this deck, I know that checking the over trigger isn't really like a skill, but if you check the over trigger after your first attack and you have enough counterblast to do the first skill and the divine skill, then you get 10 drive checks that turn, because the divine skill gives drive +2, meaning if you were to restand with the over trigger, then use the divine skill, you would have 2 drive checks, then 2 drive checks, then 4 drive checks, and then after the first skill, you'd have another 2 drive checks. So more fun over trigger shenanigans, right? Now moving on to the rest of the support, starting with a rare. This is Obdurus Glaive Dragon. He says continuous front row rearguard circle. During your turn, if you have no other front row units with the same card name as this card, this unit cannot be retired by card effects and gets power plus 10k. So really nice beater. Oh, I'll go over to the second skill, sorry. Continuous rearguard circle. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Varga in its card name, this unit gets boost. So I really like this rare. That first skill is generic, which I don't think is very important in other decks, but it's just something to think about. The first skill is generic. And this card existing means that you can have another unit that attacks after your Vanguard swing, in case you want to change your attack pattern and maybe swing with Vanguard first. That way you can stack stack triggers on another rearguard. And then I actually really like the boost skill, because if you're going to be attacking with rearguards before Vanguard in this deck, then you want those to have enough pressure to either push cards out of the hand or push damage to be able to use your divine skill. So if you put this behind like Boulder Axe Dragon, Boulder Axe will be a 28k column on turn 3, or on a Persona Ride turn, 38k column. That's, without any drive checks, which is really, really cool. So a nice unit to just pressure with. I'm a big fan of this card. The double rare is Impale Horn Dragon. He says continuous on rearguard circle during the battle where this unit boosted. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Varga in its card name, this unit gets power plus 5k. So 13k booster in any column. Then when this unit boosts a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Varga in its card name, this unit gets power plus 2k until the end of that battle. And at the end of the battle, Soul Blast 1, retire this unit and draw a card. That's also a really nice skill. So in either rearguard column, it's a 13k booster, but behind the Vanguard, it's a 15k booster, which means you're getting magic numbers on one of your Vanguard swings. And like I said, there's a high possibility that in this deck, the Vanguard swing might be your last attack based on, the Vanguard skill. So increasing the ceiling of that middle column, especially after trigger checks, is really good. And then obviously this card replaces itself for a draw and puts some soul usage in the deck, because so far it's only been counterblast usage from the Vanguard. I like this card a lot. Then the triple rare for the set is Drag Ritter Shura. So she has 2 skills. Auto, when this unit attacks, Energy Blast 2, this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of that battle. Choose one of your other rearguards with a different card name, and it gets auto when this unit is retired from rearguard circle. Return this unit to your hand until end of turn. Second skill is when this unit is retired from rearguard circle by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Varga in its card name. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, cost counterblast 1, call this card to rearguard circle, and this gets power plus 10k until end of turn. So the first skill I'm a big fan of. It gives some nice lines of play in this deck, because 2 of the cards we know of already, which are Boulder Axe and then the double rare, they retire themselves actually before the Vanguard does anything, which means you could put this skill on one of those 2 cards and then draw a card from either of their skills, and then it comes right back to your hand for next turn. I'm a big fan of that idea for Boulder Axe, especially since he's built to be an attacker. But obviously you can put this on any card. So first skill has some nice play, and it's Energy Blast, which puts some energy cost into the deck, which is good. We don't want everything to be Counterblast. But speaking of that, the second skill does require Counterblast. And I think the second skill is going to be a little, again, difficult to use with you wanting to, use your divine skill at some point. But if you're in a pinch and your opponent isn't at 4 yet, this is a good alternative line of play rather than your Divine skill, because then you can have an additional attack after your Vanguard swing. And since it happens before drive checks, you can potentially stack triggers there too. Also keep in mind that first skill is generic, just like the rares skill. So who knows, maybe this card will see play in some other decks one day. But I really like all this support. Overall, I think this deck has a decent standing competitively going forward. I haven't done any testing with it yet, but restanding Vanguards are typically very good in this game. I think it will get better with future support. But I want to make my statement that I think having a countercharger in this deck at this moment would be a little too strong. That's all for my first impressions. Let me know down below what you think about this deck or any of the revealed faded ones. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank y'all for watching, and be on the lookout for more first impressions for the coming week while we have, I think, Chris Rain coming up and just more reveals to look forward to. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.